Okay, welcome everyone. This is the first training session for the JCI Europe Business Committee, and today's topic will be customer segmentation. The session will be recorded, so it's also possible to watch it afterwards, and we will be uploading it to our Facebook pages after the session. My name is Miika Kostamo. I'm the chair of the business committee this year, and professionally I work as a business developer for a Finnish technology company. And this presentation is my perspective, the customer segmentation. There are many of those, and the session will be more on the basics and how to put it in practice in small business. There's a lot of books on how to do customer segmentation in bigger corporations, which have their management departments and so. But in this presentation, the focus is more on the practical things. I hope you enjoy it, and you're free to contact me afterwards if you want to have some questions or stay in contact for networking or other JCI things. For the start, why we're here today, we're here to learn from others, to learn a new business skill, my perspective on the topic, but hopefully offers something new, and also to start a discussion on business this year. As I said, this is the first session for the business committee. We're a new committee in JCI Europe, and we're very open to new ideas and cooperation as well. So feel free to contact us after the session. First of all, some basics. What is a target market and a customer segmentation? You have to know your market and you have to know your segment before you can start doing anything on business. Target market refers to a group of potential customers to whom a company wishes to sell its products, services, and this group also includes the specific customers to whom the company directs its marketing efforts. And the target market is part of the total market for a good or service. So you could say the total market for some universal product would be the whole world. A certain target market could be one country or one region or so. What is customer segmentation? Customer segmentation, on the other hand, is dividing customers into groups based on common characteristics so that companies can market to each group effectively and appropriately, meaning that you have messages that match that customer segment, and also the customer segment is able to receive the information you share with them, and you reach them in the right contacts. Customer segment is also a group of people who somehow interact and share information to each other. This is very important because if you say a customer segment is everybody 35 years old, that might not be the truth. Not every 35-year-old shares information with another 35-year-old. So you have to actually figure out customer segments that are valid in that sense, that they actually share information to each other, because otherwise you'll be marketing to individual people. A customer segment should respond to similar marketing messages. It doesn't mean that everybody takes the message and trust you and want to buy from you, but they should be able to receive the similar message and sales communication. The smallest customer segment, I'm putting this presentation also in the consumer business and the B2B from business to business perspective. The smallest customer segment can be a one person or organization. Especially if you're in a B2B business and you're looking for a bigger client, it's very important to figure out what the individual companies do. It's not that likely that large companies behave in the same way or have even the same business logic inside them. So it's very important to know which ones you approach and how you divide them. And customer segment is never a whole country or age group unless you're a business that is a monopoly. So, for example, in my region, we have one power company, and there's not really an option to use that or not use that. If you don't like power, then you're not their customer. But if you want to have electricity, then you are their customer. So in that case, they have a specific customer segment in my municipality. But of course, the next municipality might not be their customers if they don't have the power grid there. In the case of yoga studio, I'll just put a simple example. Local women who like yoga could be one customer segment. People who sit all day at work might be another customer segment. There might be a customer segment with a sports club or just people who do other sports and don't like stretching, because yoga kind of balances, for example, some powerlifting or some other aspects. So it might be that you have a specific customer segment. It's quite unlikely that all of these customer segments would receive the same information in the same way. And they all might need a bit variation on the communication. If the yoga studio has a blog, they might want to create content for each specific segment. So there could be one for business, one for sports clubs, one of benefits of yoga if you sit all day, and then the one that is the most typical, which is the, let's say, the women between 25 and 55 who are the most likely to do yoga anyway. But all of those are very likely to read a bit different things. And for that reason, it's all, even for a small studio in one location, it's important to understand the customer segments and the benefits the service or the hobby or whatever brings to them. Why the customer segments are important? One of the reasons is that you should know the customer segment well enough that you know what they connect to this. That picture is taken from Tokyo. I don't speak Japanese, so I have no clue what's written on those. But I would guess that the people who know these toys from Japan might respond to some marketing link to them, even today. If it's part of their culture, if it's part of the customer segment's interests, somebody selling a TV show today or some entertainment might link their messages to these things that somebody wanted to put on display in the middle of Tokyo, which is quite expensive property. But for marketing those to Finland, wouldn't make a lot of sense. I don't know. There are manga fans and others in Finland as well, but they might not receive the message in the same way as the fans of these TV series or movies did in Japan. One of the reasons why you should think about customer segmentation and the messages is that today people get bombarded with a lot of information. We get messages from the radio, we get news ads, we still get paper commercials, magazines, we get commercials on our Facebook, on social media, even on Google Maps. You can get actually messages all around. And for that reason, people are also learned to block all the information they're not actually interested in. You might actually see during the day hundreds of commercials, but only few of them click to you. Oh, that's the thing I was thinking about. I want to buy a new golf bag. Okay, it was the advertisement from the golf store nearby. And in that case, it's meaningful, but somebody who doesn't play golf doesn't make any sense. The other thing of the modern learning, this is a study done by Deloitte. And what they found out is that we have a very little concentration today. Most people lose their concentration in 5 to 10 seconds if they're not interested on the topic. If I talk about boring part of this presentation, one of you might doze off as well. People usually have very little time to learn new stuff. On a typical working day, they might spend 1% of the working week or working day to learn something new. So this leaves about 4 minutes on watching videos or doing something else. What we do today, which is quite interesting there in the middle as well, the nine times, which is every hour we open our smartphones 9 times. And that's actually one thing that still attracts people, and it actually attracts them away from other commercials as well. This is a good example. This is a picture from Seoul, from the Lotte Tower, which is the highest building in South Korea. It's an amazing view over the city. And what the guy on the left side is doing, playing with his phone. So you have a most amazing view. You just paid 20 euros to get there. and you could enjoy the view, but the guy is playing with the phone. And that kind of shows the power of the smartphone has on us overall. How about the customer segments? You should know them, first of all. And about the customer segments, this is my customer segment in my business. We work in earth moving business. The signs numbers on the left side doesn't mean a lot for people who are not involved in construction, but for the people who are involved in the construction, there's clear numbers. It shows the slope of the ground or the road, which is 3%. It shows the height values. It shows the thickness of layers, and it's very clear information. But this is just an example of a case of specific industry. For anybody else, reading the numbers wouldn't make a lot of sense, and it would just look either cool or confusing. Well-defined customer segments, they usually understand similar business jargon or slang. So if it's a hobby, skating or something, of course they have their own slang. In business context, it might be a jargon. I have one of the girls in the family watches a lot of manga and anime movies, and they have topics I have no clue of, but they know those very well in that people who are interested on manga and anime movies. The customer segments as well, they share information to each other. So there might be professional colleagues, or they might be hobbyists in the same hobby who are all interested in similar things. They usually tend to follow similar news, blogs, entertainment, and other topics, or might go to the same shows or whatever. And in this case, this is very important to know from the customer segment, because it also gives you an advice on where to target your marketing and which media to follow. I just took an example of one of my own field exhibitions, and they had 120 media partners. And I could kind of find there 40 different type of media partners. Some of them were for big construction companies, some of them were for rental companies, some of them were for reused machinery or modified machinery. So each of them had kind of target market, and each of the medias had their own way of telling things. And you need to know in a bigger industry, you need to know which ones are your actual customers, because otherwise you will be wasting a lot of money for targeting the whole industry. As an example, in Finland, the construction industry is around 250,000 people. The earth moving business where I am is around 45 to 50,000 people, and who actually work with those machines, that's under 5,000 out of the 250,000. So if I would target my messages to everybody in the industry, it would probably spread around, yeah, but most of that would go to people who are not linked to earth moving. They might be small home builders or construction engineers or railway engineers who are not actually linked that part of the construction. So for that reason, it's very important to know which are the actual customer segments and how they behave in your industry. These are two examples of our customers, actually. The left one is from Australia. The right one is from Finland. They're almost the opposite side of the world. If the Australian customer would be New Zealand, then it would be on the other side of the world. There's still 1,000 kilometers between them, but they still buy the same thing. And that's one of the benefits of customer segmentation. If you can find a message, if you can find a solution that fits a certain target group, a customer segment, you can multiply that to multiple countries as well. Of course, you need resources for that, but it means that if you run out of the growth possibilities on your own market, it might be that another country has the similar market and would be willing to buy more of the same things. And in that case, you could spread the business to a wider area. Current market is also not the whole market, because it's quite often in industrial context, the people working in the industry, they have a knowledge of the current industry. They see who are the customers today, and then that usually tends to turn the ideas so that, yeah, these are our customers, these are the ones who are buying. The picture on the right is from the Blue Ocean Strategies toolkit. It's a couple of books and actually online tools as well, but it shows that you have the current market, but then you have the soon-to-be market who's almost ready for your technology or solution. But then you might have also outside layers of the market, which are not even customers today or who are not even considering this. So it might be that you find a customer segment outside your current market that has a similar problem, and then you would be able to offer your own solutions or tools or software or whatever you do for them. And this can also be in JCI projects as well. It might be that you're trying to solve something with a certain type of project, but the focus group is wrong, and there might be another segment or customer segment in this case for your project or development idea or whatever. The value still, if you think of customer segments, it's personal. Most people are interested on what's in it for me. That picture is from a bigger group of visitors from Russia, and each one of them had different questions during the visit. So even people from the same country working in the same industry, they have different roles, and they're interested on the same thing for the different reasons. That's just one example, but it pretty much applies for any industry or any business area. Value depends on general on the role of the people, what they do at work, what they do at home. If somebody's responsible of buying all the food or has the only car in the family, that might affect their role in the family. And in general, you could put people as buyers, users of the system, because it's not always that the buyer is the user. In consumer business, it might be closer linked, but in B2B, it's quite often, especially with bigger customers, there's a totally different department doing the buying than actually using the system. And then there's the decision influencers. The people who influence other people's opinions, they might be peers in the industry, but it might be a peer or colleague in the company as well, or it might be just outsider who says that you don't do that. That might happen on the home level as well. The one might be very interested buyer, and then you have the influencer of the decision who says, no, you're not buying that. But that applies in general to a lot of things. But this is a generalization, and in real life, most people are, let's say, more complex. That's me on the picture. In business context, I'm a business developer in my main business, but I'm also a chairman in industry development group. I'm a chairman in a local rescue department, fire department, and ambulance service. And then I'm also chair of JCI Europe Business Committee, which is the role I'm playing today. So if you would have called me half an hour ago, I would be in the mode of my main business. During the lunch hour, I was having a discussion with the rescue department, so I had a different role at that time. And of course, my background affects how I see things and what I value. I'm born, raised, and educated in Finland. I have university degrees in land surveying and international business. That probably makes my perspective to land surveying different, or I see the international business in a different context because I'm also a professional technically on my field. And also I have a background of working in international business and projects since 2005. So my perspective definitely in Finland is quite different from the average consumer or average business owner in Finland who on the current level, it's around 10% of Finnish businesses actually do international business. So even meeting a company in international context from Finland means that you're already meeting like the 10% out of the 100%. And they don't actually present the majority of the country. So in that sense, that applies to most countries. That I know that in some of the more international countries, it could be half of the business could be international, but there's still a lot of local things. And unless you're local, unless you're there, you don't really know always what the benefits are as well. Customers as decision makers, we're influenced, me or any customer in business context or private life. We're influenced by marketing. We're influenced by reviews, official or unofficial reviews, or chat boxes, customer reviews on company web pages, discussion forums. There's a lot of things that today affect customers' behavior. We might be in business context be influenced by the industry experts. So if we have somebody who we see as very professional or very experienced in the industry. It might be that one individual might be affecting tens or hundreds of other companies as well. And those are very important to know in business context, because otherwise you might be trying to open the wrong doors, or try to sell with the wrong arguments if the industry expert hasn't really figured out what your service or solution is all about. We're also influenced by colleagues and family and friends. So understanding how your customers behave in their daily lives can make a big difference in your business. That's a picture from Tokyo, from Shibuya. That's one of the famous crossings where you have thousands and thousands of customers running around, and you see a lot of commercials there as well. But whoever wants to sell there must still understand what type of people usually go there. There are coffee shops, there are all kind of things. One example, the Starbucks coffee there, it's a good location for that international chain. In that context, that there's also a lot of international tourists. So it means that they're more likely to be attracted on an international brand instead of local Japanese brand, which might be very familiar to locals, but at least me, I can read the Japanese letters, so I don't know what's on the other signs, which are not written on the Western letters. And in that context, you might find your customer segment within a huge group of people and still make profitable business, as long as you understand how to market to them. How to define customer segments overall? There's a lot of ways for that. You could start with different criteria. On mass marketing, it could be age groups, general interests, working status, type of work people do, hobbies, interest, or location. I had the example of the local yoga studio in the start, and for a yoga studio, it's pretty much linked to the location where it is. So most likely, target market for it would be people around it. So if you're living in the area, or in that picture case, that's from Yokohama, where the World Congress was supposed to be last year, live Congress, but most of us saw it online. But there you can see that there's also marketing styles, and those styles are probably targeted for foreigners in that case, because you can actually read English words there. But there's also another stand that is for the local Japanese, and that's quite popular area. It's the second populous area in Japan, and it means that there's also a lot of people there. So they also organized some kind of festival. I don't know the topic of that. I was a foreign tourist on the area, so can't tell about that too much, but they know their location, they know the people are coming there, and they know there's interest and what type of food they might be buying. It might be also that burger that was not so Western styled actually is also focused for the Japanese taste, and it seems to them exotic, and that sense it might be that it's actually marketing trick to put it in English. Hard to say. Whoever sells those burgers knows the reason for the names. And in more specific business context, it might be industry, region, and also what the customers do on their daily lives, and what kind of interest they have. Closer you get to the actual people, easier it is to understand their needs and pains in the daily life. I'm not supporting children selling newspapers and windscreen washers, but that was a picture I took about 10 years ago in San Pedro Sula in Honduras. And those people had quite good business for that location. I could see they sold hundreds of newspapers in the morning, and a lot of windscreen washers as well. It solves two problems. The windscreens get dirty in Honduras, it's dusty there. And then that solved the other reason. People like to still read their morning newspapers, and where they can get it. In a country that is not so safe to walk around, the easiest way is actually to buy it on the traffic lights. Just give the coin and you get the newspaper. It meets the people on the way wherever they're going, and it's a good sales point in that country. I'm not in favor of children selling them, but it's a way to get along if you don't have other job there. what your customer's business model, that's quite important to understand. This is an example of that. The example is from a business model canvas, which is on the bottom. You can find it by Google from internet, but it kind of points out some of the important aspects of your business or customer's business. So where they get the money from, where their money goes, what value your service or offering brings to them, and how does it affect the whole business model. And that's very important to know, because it might be that your solution solves part of the problem, but it actually affects somebody else in the process. And in that case, it might be that there's a resistance against your solution or or trying to sell something to them based on the fact that you're actually taking somebody else's job off, or you're trying to make things more complicated in the process that people are used to. This is a small example. I just took a general company in my own business field. It might be a small landscaping or building construction company. Those exist all around. They do this if you want to fix your home or your backyard. They do these kind of jobs. They're usually not involved in the bigger construction projects. They do these small building foundations, backyards, parking lots. They have to pay for their own cost, possible extra hands, and in many cases, a surveyor who will show what to build and where. And they have also their own challenges. The plans for these backyards are not always that specific, and there might be some surprises on the ground as well. And they need to solve problems on site and still work fast to earn money, because they're mostly doing these small jobs. It's quite often that they only have like 3 days, 1 week for a project. And if the schedule goes wrong, their whole earning model is going wrong after that. And for that kind of customer segment, there might be a certain type of offering that I would do based on the facts, what they do and how good plans they have or don't have. And it's very important to know what the activities your own customers are, or if you're a JCI organization looking for business partners, it's very important to understand what the business partners do, and also what kind of audiences they try to reach or what kind of problems they try to solve. Proposing value to a customer segment, that's generally quite easy in a sense, but it might be also a complex analysis. In business context, the two values mostly are money or time. People are not, of course, people are influenced by their feelings, how they perceive the product. Is it easy to understand? Does it make any sense? But of course, otherwise it's also easier to build in hours or euros or dollars than it's trying to give like a general, it gets better or it gets faster type of things. And one of the tools you can use for that is a value proposition canvas. I'm not going to do that today, but it's a way to analyze the value your services bring, and also to try to list the customer segments' general problems, what you can solve, what are the current pains, or if they have a certain job that they're not doing that efficient, what would be your solution to that? And in overall, this is a way to kind of split your customer segment needs to a smaller scale, so you can actually make the offering understandable for the customer as well. Because if you generally say it saves 20% of the time, that's not very specific. But if you can actually show the task that the customer needs to do and how the time saving comes from that task and how it multiplies over a project, that's something that you can actually very easily pinpoint, and it's also easier for the customer to understand. Proposing value should still feel personal, and this is something that quite often when you're trying to target two large customer segments, the offering you make is like, we save money or we're the fastest, and that's not really linking to people's life or individual customer segments' understanding of the business. And in that reason, you should always put the offering as personal as possible. In general, value is save money, work faster, overall productivity, if you talk about B2B business context. More specific, that is easier to actually understand as well, would be a cost saving for some task or process, a concrete comparison of time used in current process and the improved process, or calculation of time plus money gains in a reference customer's activity. So if you have a similar other company or similar customer you can reference that already saved like 15% of the overall time use by taking your service or product, then you can link that to the new customer. But if it's from a totally other industry, it doesn't usually make any sense to the end customer either. So it doesn't make sense. I had the example of the Australian company and the Finnish company with excavators. I wouldn't use a Finnish excavator operator as an example for a customer in Australia because it's way too out of their kind of familiar field on the business, and anything in that industry that goes outside your own country limits usually is foreign, and they want to have kind of a confirmation that it works in this country with the regulation we have here and with the type of work we have here. I know from multiple countries that there are similarities in the businesses from the surface excavator to excavator, but there's actually a big differences how the different industries are organized on the country level or even regional level in different countries. The authorities' roles might be different, documentation you need to make it might be different, on the level of design you get from the designers might be different from papers to full digital models and workflows. So it's a big scale on the global level. And I would say also think before you act, because sometimes when you find the offering and you might be using yourself the business jargon you have, it might be that it's not actually understandable for the end customer. I work in an industry where we talk about building information modeling, construction models, digital design flows, and those are not the words our customers actually use on the field. They do a specific task. They're digging a hole for a pipeline. They're digging a hole for a foundation of a building. So those are the daily life words that gets used on the construction side. Nobody uses digital design flows on the construction side. That's the overall term defined process, but it's not something that the customers use on the field. Content for a customer segment, it should be easy to understand and shouldn't introduce hard to understand concepts. So you can always balance between the scientific jargon and common language. In most cases, if the message you're trying to give is understandable to somebody with 10 years old and with the basic language understanding, then your message is probably on the level that it should be. And you should also know from your potential customers what kind of language they use. Do they use daily life words or do they use some scientific terms? If you're working with scientists, then of course use the scientific terms. How much they know about the topic actually, what else they're familiar with. The picture on the right is from Sri Lanka, and those guys are running local taxi services. We have taxi services in Finland, but I think the systems we use here for the money collection, the mobile payments, and so on, those might be not so familiar to these guys driving the tuk-tuks. Today, in some countries, they actually might be able to take payments with the mobile phone or some other method. And that's actually become very popular, for example, in some parts of Africa, where most of the money gets transferred by mobile phone. But you always need to know what they're familiar with, what kind of things they already have. And if I would go there and want to offer a certain map service or something else for these tuk-tuk drivers, it might be that I need to adjust my offering from the one I have in Finland or some other part of Asia. And I was in Singapore a bit over a year ago, and there everybody pays everything with the mobile app, from ordering food to taxis to other services. They have one app for that, and that's probably the easiest way to get around. You don't need actually to carry your money in most cases. And especially when you're marketing to a specific customer segment, you should understand the daily frustrations they have. So if there's a specific task that is very annoying for them, or they have typical problem with that. It could be a door opening for that customer segment for products or services. This is an example of customized content. This is actually for my own industry, but we have a part of the industry's surveyors. They affect the surveyors don't usually drive the machines, but they're the ones handling the data. So they affect how the industry sees these digital solutions, how they see the machine control systems, and is it the benefit or is it not a benefit? And this is an example of customer created content or customer segment specific content. It's article magazines we wrote for surveyors with 2 colleagues. It took 2 days to make and 4 weeks to edit. So we had to draft of the text, and then we used 4 weeks, not full time to edit it, but to add things, to remove things, and make it more understandable. And it's written by professional surveyors to a surveyor audience. So of course we use the industry words surveyors use in that context. Because if you would use something that is not kind of truth in the industry, it would be funny to read and also hard to understand. I remember from an article around 10 years ago that came to Finland. It was from somebody who did not so great translation and managed to mix 2 different type of measurements, ways of measuring to each other. So it was basically the first letters on the article went already wrong, and after that you couldn't trust anything on the content. So it's very important especially when you write professional articles to a professional audience, that you have the terms right in that specific countries, because it might be that in languages as well, the Portuguese spoken in Portugal is different from the Portuguese spoken in Brazil. They're the same. They say the same language, but in the same way as English is spoken in different dialects. There's in a way also in other languages similar dialects, and it might also in special industry fields they might use totally different words for same task or defining some part of the construction. And in that sense, know your audience, write the type of thing they're interested in. In this case, we gave kind of an overview of the last 10 years of development and also overview of what's coming in the future. So it's kind of giving a highlight of the current situation and offering some insights for the future development. That's actually influencing the influencers in the industry, because those kind of articles are not that commonly written in my own industry. So when somebody does that, it kind of tends to also affect the industry's perspective for the future. Other thing about the messages and writing is that interesting stuff spreads further. It applies to funny cat videos or dog videos. If you're a specific dog enthusiastic, it might be that you like a lot a certain breed of dogs, but you're not that interested in the other ones. But generally, what's interesting or written in an interesting way gets spread further. Most likes and reads are not gained by theoretical studies and formal company news in most cases. I can see that at least from our blogs and the views we get from the company. That's a test I did that's actually a picture from my office window on the right side. And it got 51 likes and over 3,000 views, over 2,900 views. And it was not that specific. It just highlighted some of the companies that happened to be next to our office. It highlighted the current project there, but it was a topic that a lot of people work on, and it was also something that a lot of people follow. So in that context, it created more audience than a normal post from a company that might say we have a new promotion or we have a new product coming. But if you link it to people's daily lives, if you make it insightful, interesting, and even if you can include the feel of proud in the post for the people who read it, and raise positive emotions, it's very likely it gets spread further than negative news or writing just statistics from your company side. Culture matters as well. It might be the industry culture, it might be the country culture, or it might be a specific company culture. because some companies in the industry, if you take, for example, computers or IT, we have Google, we have Apple, we have a lot of companies in the industry, and each one of those have some certain internal culture, and they also have cultures in their different countries. I just took one example. This is a generalization. Hofstede Institute is studying these different cultures. It's actually based on comparison of IBM in the past, but they did comparison of IBM, one company, large company in IT industry, a lot of men there. So it might be that the results don't apply generally to everybody in a specific country, or it might be biased to the male side of the business. But even from this study, they could see that I took comparison of some of the people in the business committee this year, Finland, France, Germany, Malta, and you can see there's definitely differences. For example, in business context, what is the power distance? How close the junior engineer is to the CEO in the company? How much the customers want to avoid uncertainty? So you can see on Malta, 96, that's top is 100. So that means that the uncertainty avoidance is very high, at least in that industry. Germany, Finland are more happy about uncertainty as well. So they might be more open for new solutions as well. But for Malta's side, that would suggest that you should have solutions, or you should offer them so that they're tested locally and proven that they work locally. And then the long-term orientation is also another aspect. Germans are very long-term oriented. Finland is not that long-term oriented. I don't know the difference for that, or the reason for that, but it means that we should, as a Finnish, I'm a Finnish engineer in a Finnish company. If I work with Germans, I should have a different approach than the approach I use in Finland. For example, promoting the company and showing how we want to operate, or how long we're going to stay in Germany. These are aspects that are well worth learning, especially if you work in a multinational or international company or business. Also, remember to adapt to the local realities. Those are two countries where I've done in the past aerial survey operations. I did the same type of work in both countries. But you can, of course, see on the left side that Singapore, very advanced, the high-tech hub of Asia in a way. A lot of finance, a lot of fine buildings. And the right side is Mauritania, which is one of the poorest countries in Africa. Both needs maps. That was the reason why I was there, taking the aerial photographs. But of course, the other parts you need to adapt. In one of them, it's high-rise buildings, and one of them it's mostly sand. And about half of the population in Mauritania is without official job. So what you do there and how you do your work is affected by the environment as well. We did the same projects, we get similar payment for those, but of course the realities of the market in otherwise is different. In Singapore, we could buy most of the things we need locally, but for example, for Mauritania, we had to bring all our computers and any special equipment from abroad because it was not openly available. You couldn't buy computers for image processing in Mauritania. So you had to import those for the project. If you look at the picture on the background, that's basically, it's also from Shibuya, from Tokyo, Shibuya Fashion Week. That looks pretty much American style of band, but it seems there's something in the band that attracts audience there. So in that customer segment, that audience, it's a good way to approach. But how you define your own customer segments, it depends on the country, it depends where you work, what kind of products you have. But in the next slides, I have listed some of the ways to do that. You should, or you can start from the industry level if you offer several industries or customer segments. And then you should go down to the individual level of individual customers. In B2C, it means that general age, gender, location, and more detailed information when you're targeting a certain group is work, hobbies, social circles, and could be also family status, for example. If you're targeting families with small children, then you should, of course, understand how their life is different from people who don't have children or have other hobbies during the evenings. In industrial perspective, it could be the industry number of employees in the companies, products purchased in the past if they're already customers, and the location. But in more detail, you should understand your customer's business model, how they earn money, how they spend money, and what is the part of activity they do on daily lives, and also what type of customers they have. So if they're offering to small houses, or if they're house owners, their services, or if their services are brought by the government, or if their main customer group is larger companies in the same industry, all they have different purchasing strategies, and they have different ways how they subcontract work, or how long it takes, for example, to get an offer through. If you're doing business with small homeowners, it's very likely that they either buy it or don't buy it. But if you're working with government in some countries, it could take years from the first bidding document to the actual purchase of the project or some services to that. So you need to understand kind of how long it takes and what is the kind of typical sales cycle for a new sales. In my industry, it's from few months to few years. In some of my friends who sell, for example, software to the municipalities, it might be from 1 year to 15 years. For example, if it's a complicated system, it could take 15 years until they're willing to change it. And that's very important to understand also for the cycle and the offering and what kind of things you do. And then you should define also who are you targeting in the market. Picture is also from Tokyo. Of course, those commercials are mostly for the locals who hang around in that district. That's not Shibuya. It's not so well known, still a popular one. And then you should also know who we're targeting in your industry. Every industry have these high-tech guys who are interested of all the new trends, want to try all the new stuff. But then majority of the customer group usually is people who want to do things that are already existing in the market. Somebody else fixed all the bugs in the first version, and it's been tested and proven. So why the picture there? On my business, Japan is one of the most conservative countries, and very, very resistant to changes. So in that context, if you want to do business there in my field, you probably have to be from 5 to 10 years in the country with a physical person there before you can actually start doing anything. And in other countries, it could be straight purchase from 1.5 months or so. So that's very important to understand in the markets. Good way to find out the real needs is to go and see what the customers actually do. That's my own customer segment, earth construction companies. Might look a bit confusing, but in that case, they were looking for a location for a pipeline, they're supporting structures. And by seeing what they actually do, you could see, okay, in that part of the task, you could actually use this system to help it. You wouldn't need that surveyor in the hole standing next to the heavy machinery. And that kind of things come out from actually seeing on site what happens. If you don't know the actual practicalities, you can give general offerings, but it's also hard to pinpoint what you need. And then you can start doing the value proposition. What are the gains? What are the customer jobs or pains you're able to handle with your new offering? What is the value out of those? Summary, it's that customer segments are you're able to create messages that fit to the specific customer. You're able to find the right communication channels and the way the customers want to receive the information. You're probably able to find ways to improve your products, services, or general offering. You're able to improve your relationship to the customers. You're able to focus on the profitable customers, because once you figure out in a bigger market which are the ones actually buying, you should target them, not the whole market. In my industry, it's about 1,000 people out of 250,000. So it makes a lot of difference how much money you're going to spend marketing them. You can improve your customer service as well when you understand what they do in the daily life, and you can probably increase sales from the unmet previous needs of even the current customers. And then the last thing here, I didn't want to do a group work in this, but I will give you a task. So start defining a new customer segment. It means that somebody you have not worked with before or is not from your region, but might still need your service, business, or cooperation with the chapter. And here's some questions for that. Where's the customer segment located? Who would be the typical buyers, decision makers, and influencers in the customer segment? How they want to receive information, emails, commercials, industry events, how they earn and spend money and time. So in specific, depending on what the customer segment is it consumers or is it the companies, how they earn the money, how they spend the money, and what the value could offer to them. And then if you can even figure out the specific challenge or problem they have, that's even better. I will share these slides I will put a link to the event in Facebook, so you can download the slides afterwards. So if you don't want to do this now, or didn't have time to take a screenshot or write them down, I will offer the slides afterwards, so you can use those also later. In short, here's also the books I used as a source for this. I recommend to read those at some point if you're interested on learning more about customers and the value proposition to them. And on my side, I want to thank you for participating, and questions and comments are welcome as well. And from this point on, I will switch back to the task if somebody wants to do that, and